Hello, everybody, and welcome to Natural Balance, our program here today. I am Debbie Murad, and I'm very pleased to introduce Reverend Lorraine Cohen, who's going to speak to us about how emotional and mental blocks affect health and living an abundant and purposeful life. Reverend Lorraine Cohen is a soul power coach. She does energy healing, intuitive readings. She's a spiritual badass and health alchemist. She supports women to awaken to their soul's wisdom. She is a published author and has 2 bestsellers on the topic of self-love, health, and an abundant life. Reverend Lorraine Cohen is internationally recognized for her soul power coaching, quantum energy healing, and intuitive reading. She uses her highly attuned spiritual and healing gifts to support conscious women to dive deep into self-love and to transform past emotional wounds into wisdom, compassion, and power. So welcome.
Thank you for having me, Debbie. I'm excited for our conversation today.
Thank you. I'm excited too. So first question I'd like to ask you is, you focus on health in your work with clients, and it's a priority of your own life. Could you say more about that?
Yes. It oftentimes comes back, Debbie, to we teach what we most need to learn. And I have been healthy most of my adult life. And as I have shared in many different venues, that in 2012, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and have been working with that 4 times. I take a step back and sometimes chuckle and say I have a desire to be very thorough things and have found so many blessings in this experience, which may sound very odd to people because when you are diagnosed with something like cancer, it brings up so much fear. And, one of the things that I've been told repeatedly is that part of my purpose may be to change the consciousness around illness and disease like cancer, to be able to look at it from a higher perspective and see how our health conditions can actually be pathways to making the kinds of changes that we so need to make in order to live our greatest life. And that's how I've chosen to work with my diagnosis and some of the ailments that have come as a result of that, to use it from a place of power rather than to feel victimized or at the mercy of, a condition. So it's been a very powerful experience.
It's inspiring. It really is.
Thank you.
You also speak about how emotions get stuck in the body, like guilt, fear, anger, resentment, and how they can make you sick and keep you sick.
Yes. When I was first diagnosed, of course, my first thought was to look and see the potential of what was going on emotionally, because I truly believe that at the genesis of any ailment or the genesis of any challenge that we're dealing with in our life has an emotional and a mental component, because we are emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical beings. So it's, in my opinion, it's absolutely critical when you're looking at things to look at the different elements that contribute to any situation so that you can get a really clear picture. And so one of the first places that I began to look at was in the area of guilt and resentments and anger. And for me, it wasn't anger, it was really rage. And I was also guided to do some research, because whenever we're dealing with any kind of a health situation, it's smart for us to do our due diligence and do some of the research and see what other people have to say that we feel are more in an authority position, that feel more aligned with who we are, as opposed to just going along with the crowd. So I was brought back to looking at some of the information that Louise Hay put out 30 years ago when she was first diagnosed with cancer, and she certainly recognized as a pioneer in the messages that she communicates about working with affirmations and the connection between different illnesses and the mental patterns and the emotional patterns and, of course, the spiritual connection. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that she talks about is that at long-held emotions like guilt, anger, resentments, criticism, self-criticism, when we hold these thoughts and emotions in our body over an extended period of time, it creates the breeding ground for illness to fester. And a lot of times we can think that we've let something go because we're not giving it attention anymore. And the truth of it is that as human beings, we can easily become distracted. Who among us really, in growing up, was really shown how to work through our feelings? That we were, if you have some challenge coming on. I mean, I certainly didn't grow up in a home when I was dealing with any kind of anger or frustration where my parents sat me down and helped me to process it. What they grew up with was you move on. You can't get stuck in these types of things. And so who among us had the type of people in our life who demonstrated how to work through things in healthy ways so that we weren't holding on to it in our bodies? So whatever we don't release, it has to go somewhere within ourselves. So what we do is we pack it down, we push it away, we move it around. Over the years, how many times have people been in situations where they're working through thoughts and feelings and then what is the latest technique so I can get rid of this as quickly as possible? And so we're looking for ways to direct and control and manage instead of actually getting to the heart of what it is that's really going on inside of us, to stop long enough to feel, to allow ourselves, to give ourselves permission to feel what we need to feel without rushing in so quickly to try to move it around somewhere, which is just another way of stuffing it, and learning how to hold that sacred space of honoring our emotions in a way that allows us to release the energy. Where people get stuck many times when they think they're doing that work is they focus on the story and the details as opposed to resting and breathing into the energy so that it can release. And it's kind of like, what it reminds me of, Debbie, is, when you have a roaring fire and you keep throwing logs into the fire, then the fire is going to continue to flame. But when you step back and you stop doing that, the fire will eventually burn out. And that's the way I think about emotions. When we honor, when we allow ourselves to feel without resistance, when we have a strong enough internal foundation, which is part of what I think is so critical in doing the inner work. It's what I focus on with people before we ever go digging is strengthening that internal fundamental foundation of self-love and inner strength and connection to your own divinity and your gifts and all of the things that help you to be able to navigate these kinds of experiences of deep dive so that you don't collapse into what it is that you want to let go of. The more that we allow ourselves to look in some of these shadow places, into some of these nooks and crannies, the more that we liberate our bodies to do what it does best, and that is to heal.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Powerful. So how do people make agreements to stay sick with themselves or others for protection and connection? That's part of your work. Very interesting.
Yes. It probably sounds strange that somebody may make agreements and see it as a force of connection. And just think of it in terms of, how often when people come together and they talk about how are you doing, how are you feeling? So somebody may say, I'm dealing with a lot of pain, and maybe somebody else will say, oh, me too. And so now you have some connections with people, and you have a community that is now all sharing common symptoms that can be support,
Mm-hmm.
or it can be a place to commiserate, or it can be a place to stay stuck. It can fill a need
Mm-hmm.
of wanting those types of connections. So it can be an upside, or it can literally be a place where people get comfortable in feeling bad.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was having a conversation with somebody recently who was talking about some physical pain that she'd been dealing with for a period of time. And we talked about looking at what could be at the source of that pain that was also continuing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that she realized was that each time she was ready to take like a leap or make a change in her life, the ailment would flare. And so it gave her permission to step back and say, not the right time, I'm not feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
And when she started to realize how she had been using that particular pain to hold herself back,
Mm-hmm.
to create this perceived space of safety for herself, that was also like a double-edged sword. And she said to me, I've become so accustomed to feeling bad. Who would I be without this?
Yeah.
What responsibility, what accountability would I need to step into? What would I need to let go of
Mm-hmm.
in order to let this, to stop using this? Who would I be called to be? So that was also another eye-opening for her. And we've been working with dismantling some of those patterns so that she can build the kind of confidence and the strength and work with the fears and the beliefs and the patterns,
Mm-hmm.
so that she doesn't have to use being sick to
Mm-hmm.
hold ourselves back. Another thing that can happen is that in some families, illness is part of how they all connect with each other. Just like some families, some people will hold themselves back from stepping into their greatness because they don't want to do better than others, because they want to keep the family cohesion together
Mm-hmm.
at a certain level. So it can be a way that we use it to not make other people jealous, or to be on the outside of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about really getting honest about, how is this serving me? And in order to get some of those answers, we have to go inside and start asking different questions, rather than just focusing simply on a symptom, because the symptom is an indication of something more. And if we only treat it physically, we're missing out on a lot of messages we are trying to tell ourselves, sometimes very loudly.
Mm-hmm.
And in that willingness to take some of those deeper dives, we can liberate ourselves, and our lives can transform into greater abundance and joy and happiness and purpose beyond our greatest expectations, beyond our greatest imagination. We have to be willing to have the courage to go there,
Mm-hmm.
to dare to go there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very powerful. I do think it takes a lot of courage. I feel like I see this every day. I work with people with health and mental health issues and a great deal of pain, this attachment to the pain. But I really appreciate the way you're describing it and explaining it and helping people to grow from it. I think it's really
Yes.
unique. Yeah.
The other thing that I think is really important is that, was a comment years ago. A woman said to me that there will come a time that you will realize, or forgive, or trust your body again.
Mm-hmm.
And that struck me as a very odd statement, because I didn't feel that my body had betrayed me because of what I was dealing with. I felt that my body was really working to give me the message and the information that I needed in order to come back into alignment with its own wisdom. Because we have a history of being able to heal from many things that don't require any medication, or people having instant healings. I've certainly had those myself. So one of the points I want to make with this is that when we become more aware of our participation in creating physical ailments or creating hardships and difficulty, we need to be compassionate and understanding and let the judgments go, because we are always doing the best that we can based on our level of awareness, based on what's going on in our life, based on the people that surround us, the things we've come to believe. There's so many things that contribute to our perspective. So it's about being gentle and loving and compassionate with the information that we become aware of, so that we are not separating from ourselves and moving forward from a place of self-anger and unforgiveness that will only create and make our experience more painful.
Yeah, a huge task for so many of us.
It's a journey.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So what about the role of forgiveness in all of this? What does forgiveness really mean? Why is it so difficult for people to forgive others, and especially themselves?
Yeah. Forgiveness. So, how many times have we grown up and heard in different instances that when something happens, to forgive and forget? And the truth is that we don't forget anything, really. And whatever transpires in our lives is fodder, if you will, to help us grow and evolve. So there's a purpose to everything that's happened in our lives, but sometimes the perception around forgiveness translates to mean, especially if it's with somebody else, and so it interprets as whatever transpired wasn't a big deal, and so I should just forget about it, and whatever happened was fine, it was okay. And all of that minimizes whatever that experience was for that person. So what forgiveness really means is it is an act of mercy. It allows us to look at the other person, the situation, as well as ourselves from a place of understanding that we are always showing up as the best us in every moment. And in every moment, our best can change based on what's happening in our lives, based on our level of awareness, our experiences. So hurt people hurt people. And if you think of the metaphor of how when an animal is wounded, how dangerous they are because of their capacity in that wounding to attack and strike. So applying that same metaphor to us as people, when we are feeling deeply wounded, especially towards ourselves, where there's really no place to go because we can't outrun ourselves, that we can cause ourselves the greatest amount of pain because we are hurting. And in that hurting, we can also divert that pain outside of ourselves because we don't know where to go with it. We don't know how to work with that because it requires having that compassion, having that love. So we can think many times that we have forgiven somebody, that we have understood, we have accepted what has happened, and still have some charge associated with it. That's one of the ways that we can tell whether we're still harboring some resentment, some unforgiveness, is that there's still some sort of a charge, like a pebble in your shoe or some deeper reaction. Also looking at the ways in which you care for yourself, the ways in which you are self-loving are indications of some unforgiveness where you may be involved in some behaviors of self-punishment or withholding of things that you need, or just treating yourself unkindly. Your self-talk are all indications. Also, some of the experiences that we have in life, building up debts, not getting help when you need it, your energy levels, illness, things that happen in relationships are all clues to where we can be holding on to unforgiveness. And it's also important, Debbie, to realize that the experience of forgiveness is ongoing, because as long as we're in relationships, we are still having opportunities to get triggered,
Mm-hmm.
where we are reacting and creating drama, where we slip into judgment, where we might make a hasty decision. So we get lots of practice to become kinder, more compassionate, and more self-loving. When you can look at it from that perspective, then forgiveness and unforgiveness can be a blessing to help to open our heart.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a lot of forgiveness work with people. Sometimes they think that I have completely done all the forgiveness work, and of course I'm thinking inside, well, I haven't met anybody who's done that, including myself. So
okay.
maybe you are first. Maybe the Dalai Lama, I think, is capable of extreme compassion and forgiveness, but I know I'm not there. So it's a good indication to take a look at where there can still be some unforgiveness. So, I would love to create a little experience for people.
Yes.
You're open?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Wonderful.
So, you can just take a moment, everybody, as you're listening to this, and think of something in your life. This is going to pertain to self-forgiveness, because I believe that before we can really forgive somebody else, if we can't forgive ourselves, we're really not coming from a place of fullness of the capacity of love that we're capable of. So think of something in your life. Maybe you're dealing with a challenge right now. It might be money related, which is a big trigger for a lot of people. It might even be an illness. So whatever it is that comes to mind where you are feeling that you're holding on to some distress or possibly self-anger, if nothing comes to mind, just know that you can return to this video and work with some of these questions again. I'm just going to put out 2 questions. It's a series of questions that I like to ask. So whatever it is that's coming to mind, I invite you to just close your eyes so that you can really be present in your body with whatever comes up. So whatever it is that you have come up with that you want to use as an example, just rest into that for a moment. Now, what if this situation that you have created was brilliantly designed indirectly by you so that you could create a deeper relationship with your spirit, with that divine source within you? And knowing yourself as you do, this particular situation or series of situations was your best avenue to disarm you, to break down your barriers, so that you could have this kind of connection that you have been craving at a deeper level. If that were true, could you forgive yourself? And just breathe into that question for a moment and notice what comes up for you. Notice some of the sensations that may come up for you. And now feel into this question. What if you came into this life with this situation predestined because there was a certain learning experience that you needed for your soul's evolution and for your human experience in order to live your life purpose? And what if also this experience was pivotal so that you could be a guide and help for others who might go through a similar situation, because you had been there and done that and learned how to navigate it? You could be a guide and a source for others to help them navigate that same terrain. If that were true, could you forgive yourself? And breathe into that. Just rest into that and notice what comes up for you. And as you breathe, if any of those questions resonated with you, what might you be thinking, feeling, and saying to yourself with greater love and compassion than perhaps the way you think, speak, and feel about yourself, what would change? How might your life change and open in ways that you are wanting? And breathe into that. And when you're ready, just gently open your eyes. Just notice anything that may feel different. Anything that you might want to share, Debbie?
Sure. Yeah. I really did feel into that, and what came to mind. I'm dealing with just my hip, and I usually don't have health issues. Is I would be more patient with myself and more relaxed. I don't, and it would increase my empathy. I think of myself as being empathic, but I'd have more empathy and compassion for others.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can be hard on myself if something's not working, and easily frustrated.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Those are such wonderful opportunities for us to practice having more patience, more compassion, more trust, more love towards ourselves. And that's the beauty of a health experience or a life challenge, is it invites us to get lots of practice. That's how we become masterful at anything. And so, we can become frustrated by it, which is some of what we've learned to do, or we can step back, sometimes fight with it a little bit. I have a close friend who at times has said to me when I have expressed being at a level of exhaustion, and she'll lovingly say to me, "Look at how brilliant you are, that you've exhausted yourself so you stop fighting." And I think to myself, shut up. And that is so true.
Yes. I'm going to use that.
I am brilliant, I am very brilliant because so we can look at any situation from a place of blessing, or we can look at it as a problem. And that's how powerful we are. And one tiny shift can change the entire experience for us, to move it from a place of difficulty to one of grace. We're being invited to do that with all the things that are happening in people's lives right now. I think it's very exciting, and I mean, it's not always easy, as you said at the beginning. I don't love every minute of it. I have certainly yelled, cried, been on my knees several times, because that's also part of just letting yourself feel everything. And when we're not holding on to all of those types of emotions, then the body doesn't have to store it and use it to create something that we don't want, or create more clogs and blocks in the things that we're wanting to bring into our lives.
Well, thank you. That's very powerful. Before we leave, there's a special gift. I don't know. Do you want to say anything about the gift?
I would love to.
Okay.
This is something that is really brand new that I've been offering, and that is with my commitment and my passion to help people to feel healthy in every possible way, including physically. I am inviting people to have a 20-minute get well and stay well session with me, where I'll help you to see what's going on with you from a health perspective, and help you to find the number one blind spot and block that might be going on that is keeping you in that space, so that you can move forward with greater health and ease and vitality. And also with that, I have a special audio. I'm not sure which audio I offered, so I don't want to give the wrong information, but it's a special free gift that you're going to love. So it might be one on drama, or it might be one on laughter. Both of them are great. So I hope you'll love it.
Yeah.
And definitely take advantage of having a session with me, because this is not something that I offer all the time. So it really is a gift. So I invite everybody to really take advantage of it.
It really is. I do too. And thank you again for that offer. And I just want to let everybody know watching this program that you have a couple of websites, LorraineCohen.com and UnwaveringStrength.com.
Actually, UnwaveringStrength.com is associated with somebody else's, but that is a website where I co-authored a book, as well as co-authored a book with Embraced by the Divine. But the main website to really look for me is LorraineCohen.com.
Okay, so everyone, please visit
Best
Lorraine
place
at LorraineCohen.com.
Please. Yeah.
And thank you again. Thank you for your time today, for your inspiration. Thank you for the special gift to all of our listeners.
Can I end with a special prayer? I'd love to do that.
Yes.
Do we have time to do that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a prayer by Debbie Ford that I felt guided to read. So I invite everybody again to just close their eyes. Dear God, Goddess, Creator of all that is, today I close my eyes and invite into my conscious awareness all the holy parts of myself that have been hidden from my sight. I affirm that it's safe to open up to my deeply spiritual essence, to discover the divine thread that connects me to everyone else, seen and unseen on the planet. I proclaim that it is safe to come face to face with my greatness, my gifts, my spiritual vastness, my holiness. Today, God grant me the courage to stand without apology in the presence of all my greatness. Give me the insight to reclaim the light that I've attributed to or projected onto others. Allow me to open up and see what's possible for humankind when I stand fully in the presence of my holiness. Support me, please, in being present to the importance of my own holy self. Wash away anything that's between me and that divine thread, my divine essence. Allow me to be humble enough to know that I have nothing to do with how divine I am. Today, dear God, allow all the light that I've transferred out into the world to people I know and to people I don't know, to people who are alive and people who have passed, to return back to me. Bring all that light right now back into me. Let me open my arms, my heart, to the uniqueness of my humanity and the magnificence of my divinity. Let me know the divine as myself. And so it is, and it is so. Amen.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
So thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this beautiful program. And I'm just sending you lots of love.
Thank you. And to you.